Good morning. This is Claire Rivero, and this presentation has been created for the Time Travelers group at Santa Claus Christian Church. This is about dementia and experiments in treating it and potentially reversing it. I want to make very clear that none of these modalities or techniques have yet been approved by the FDA for use in the United States, but it will give you an idea of where the science here is going and what can be done potentially to reverse dementia. That's my last subject. One of the things that has been found is that directed light interventions can help people with dementia. And what they are discovering in these experiments is especially bright light, time to daytime, and dynamic circadian effect lighting have a lot of good evidence for improving sleep timing, reducing daytime napping, and lessening some behavioral symptoms, which we know as agitation and mood, in people who live with dementia. Evidence for robust, lasting improvements in global cognition is weaker and mixed. Newer approaches, gamma frequency, light and sound, and transcranial photobiomodulation are promising, but they're still in the experimental phase. What the trials and reviews show. Multiple systemic reviews and randomized trials report that appropriately timed bright or circadian effective lighting does reduce daytime sleepiness, consolidates nighttime sleep, and improves sleep quality in many people with dementia. Effects are some of the most consistent across a number of studies. Behavioral symptoms, which would include agitation, depression, neuropsychiatric symptoms. Several meta-analyses and trials have found that moderate reductions in agitation, sundowning, and depressive symptoms with bright targeted lighting or biodynamic lighting systems in care settings, particularly where the focus is regular and daytime focused, result in various degrees of these behaviors being modified. Now, in terms of cognition, the evidence is mixed. Some meta-analyses and smaller RCTs report short-term cognitive improvements, and others find no overall meaningful benefit. There are going to need to be more studies done to see how this can affect these other areas. And the practical takeaway for people who are caregivers, you can use light as an adjunctive low-risk tool. And the timing does matter because morning, early day bright light or daytime circadian effective lighting is usually recommended to entrain rhythms, which means if you do this consistently at the same time of day, it's going to entrain waking and help people stay awake for a little bit longer, which is good. And there are several other studies that I want to share. Scientists do say that supplementing diet with various minerals, vitamins, fish oil, for example, is very, very good, like an omega-3. And some scientists are saying that perhaps omega-3 could help prevent dementia. And there's another study. When people talk about dementia, they say, oh, it's genetic. But in spite of what a lot of people say, Only about 1 in 100 cases are caused genetically. Now that's a jaw dropper, at least to me. And that's according to a group of 30 health experts across the US, UK, China, and Japan who believe that we can cut our risks by making simple diet and lifestyle changes, from cutting down on carbs and sugars, taking omega-3s, and even making sure that our gums stay healthy. This is what some of the experts do to lessen their chance of getting dementia. There is a gentleman by the name of Robert Lustig, who is a specialist in pediatrics and nutrition from UC, who has written extensively on how sugar impacts the brain and why you need to avoid sugar to avoid Alzheimer's. And there's also a Harvard-trained psychiatrist, Dr. Eid, who recommends cutting carbs to prevent what is called type 3 diabetes. Now, we've had discussions about type 3 before, and what the guy says, Dr. Lustig, is that fructose, high in fruit juice and hidden in so many processed foods, is a primary driver of Alzheimer's. If you want to prevent Alzheimer's, cut your sugar level. Sugar and the body's ability to process it have been linked to Alzheimer's before. And experts have noted that nerve cells in the brain may become resistant to the effect of insulin, which is the hormone responsible for regulating blood sugar and glucose. In Alzheimer's patients, it's in a similar way to those who have diabetes. And what they say about dementia-proofing your diet and lifestyle, apparently in the UK, dementia, Alzheimer's affects 6 in 10 people. That's scary, okay? 6 in 10. That's a jaw dropper, folks. Try to eat more fatty fish and supplement omega-3 and D, vitamin D. Make sure that you keep your homocysteine low with B vitamins. Watch the sugar, eat antioxidants, and polyphenol-rich vegetables. How many people here love broccoli? This is a broccoli-loving household. Broccoli is so good for you. Keep yourself physically and mentally active and socially active. And sleep well and build stress resistance. I know in our little household of 2, there are times when sleep's a little bit hard to come by because of the nature of what Mike does. And it's a little difficult. They talk about Alzheimer's being type 3 diabetes because 80% of cases show insulin resistance, which is what makes it difficult for the brain to use the carbs as energy. And if you have a ketogenic diet, it improves insulin resistance and generates ketones from fat, and that energizes the brain. It can be very good. And what happens with Alzheimer's, it leads to a buildup of abnormal cells, and then it causes nerve cells in the brain to die. This disrupts the transmitters that carry messages and causes the brain to shrink over time, leading to classic Alzheimer's symptoms, memory loss, confusion, communication difficulties, and it makes this the leading cause of dementia. And one person, a professor, Dr. Jin Tai Yu, the director of the Institute of Neurology at Fudan University in Shanghai, says it may be possible to prevent, wait for it, 80% of dementia cases if all known factors, including homocysteine lowering B vitamins and omega-3s, were targeted. 80%.
Wow.
That's a jaw dropper for me. And one professor, Dr. David Smith, who is the deputy head of the University of Oxford's Medical Science Division, agrees that prevention is the key. And what he says is that with no clinically effective drugs and minimal role of genes, our focus has to be on diet and lifestyle changes that reduce the risk of developing dementia. And he is also recommending B supplements, omega-3, and you have a gentleman from Canada, Dr. Stephen Kinane, who is a psychologist at the University of Sherbrooke's Research Center on Aging, and he claims his research show that people in the early phases of Alzheimer's could get benefit from a ketogenic diet. And this is where, that's a funny word, ketogenic, but what it means is the body is getting its nourishment and the brain is getting its nourishment more from fat than carbohydrates. And yeah. So that's something that we definitely need to look at. And also another gentleman, the Japanese Society of Orthomolecular Medicine, Dr. Atsugo Yanishikawa, eats fish and supplements B12 every day. And he believes in it and believes this is going to help him, and he's a professional, in the industry. And he is saying, eat more fish, watch out and get the good natural oils. They're going to help. And here's another one I thought was fascinating. And it was from a resource called Study Says. You may have seen them in a magazine or whatever. And this was actually in an online blog called Zero Hedge. She lived to 117. How the world's oldest woman's cells stayed decades younger than her age. And this was researched. And very interesting how this happened. Maria Brañas Morera lived to 117, yet DNA methylation tests showed her cells acting about 23 years younger than her chronological age. Now, what did she do? She made a decision in the last 20 years that she was going to have 3 servings of yogurt every day. And she did eat that and she was conscious and aware and awake. And she did more than just live to 117. She donated her body to science. And what researchers found challenged some long-held assumptions about aging. And despite her chronological age, her cells told a very different story. The DNA methylation clocks, which are tests that measure chemical changes to DNA that accumulate with age, her biological age was roughly 23 years younger. And so that begs the question, can we age in years without our cellular aging going at the same pace? And what they found with her was her gut microbiome was decades younger than anyone thought it would be. And it must have been the yogurt, okay? And what the researchers found, and they wrote it in a study in Cell Reports Medicine, was that they believed that the yogurt made the difference in the gut situation. And what they were looking for was bifidobacterium, because it exists in more than just the gut. It helps reduce inflammation throughout the body and produces compounds including short-chain fatty acids, which help regulate metabolism and immune function. Thanks to the beneficial bacteria in her diet, they found all sorts of wonderful evidence of this bifidobacterium all over the place, and it may have contributed to her efficient fat metabolism, connecting gut health to how the body processes cholesterol and triglycerides. Now, anyone have someone in their family who hates yogurt? In our little family of 2, I have one. Give them a pill. Go to Amazon. You can find this stuff all over the place. And you can find supplements that have this stuff. So if they hate yogurt, they don't have to eat it. And the last thing I want to talk about here was a wonderful article called Immortal Monkeys? Not Quite. And I'm going to use the R word here because that's what the article did. But scientists just reversed aging with super stem cells in monkeys. Now this research, which you can imagine was not done here, it was done in China. And they halted age-related bone loss, restored vitality, and the therapy also cut back on inflammation and reduced burden of senescence cells, those age cells that are not dividing properly and drive aging through the body. And in this discovery and using the monkeys, it's going to have a profound impact on the study of aging because scientists in Beijing have taken a dramatic step toward what seemed a little while to be impossible or science fiction, making older animals younger again. The study was published last month in the journal Cell. And what they did was they fortified human stem cells with a gene long linked to longevity. They rejuvenated aged monkeys, and what they got was improving memory, protecting bones, calming inflammation, and restoring youthful activity across a bunch of organs. Now, the work, while done in animals, is probably the most close demonstration we've had that aging in primates and ultimately maybe humans can be reversed. And here is the science. In the heart of the study are mesenchymal progenitor cells, MPCs, a type of stem cell found in bone marrow and connective tissue. These cells act as the body's maintenance crew, capable of turning into bone, cartilage, fat, and muscle cells while secreting factors that help nearby tissue regenerate themselves. That's a jaw dropper. But like all cells, MPCs age with us and eventually succumb to senescence, a case of permanent retirement. Senescent cells just don't divide anymore. Worse, they pump out inflammatory molecules, scar tissue signals, and other toxic chatter that accelerate in aging neighboring cells. In effect, senescent cells spread the decline. And what they did was they upgraded the system with FOXO3. And FOXO3 is a protein which has long been shown to be a longevity gene regulator. In healthy cells, FOXO3, kind of like a switchboard operator, turns on DNA repair pathways and antioxidant defenses and stress-resistant programs. In older cells, the activity wanes and it leaves them more vulnerable to damage. Hydra, a freshwater organism capable of regenerating indefinitely, rely heavily on FOXO to keep their stem cells active. Humans share the same protein, and genetic studies on links of variants of FOXO3, we find this in exceptional longevity in people. If they've got FOXO3, chances are they're going to be around to annoy and harass us for a long time to come, okay? The Chinese Academy of Science teams genetically engineered MPCs so that FOXO3 would stay permanently active inside the nucleus, which meant that they were constantly flipping on protective genes. The researchers then engineered senescent resistant cells, which means cells that weren't going to die, okay? SRCs by altering genes that control DNA repair, stress resistance, and mitochondrial function. These fortified cells were then transplanted into elderly macaque monkeys with an age that corresponds roughly to people in their 60s or 70s. And what they found was that SRC treatment mitigated age-related brain shrinkage and rejuvenated multiple organs. Whoa, okay? Simply put, MPCs provide the hardware, the body's natural repair crew, while FOXO3 was the software upgrade that makes them resistant to aging. And the results were kind of amazing. Bone health, normally older primates show progressive bone loss. I've got a bit of that myself. It's a close analog to osteoporosis in humans. Monkeys that received the SRCs maintained or even improved bone density, suggesting that skeletal decline might be reversed. That's fascinating. Cognitive performance. While tested on memory and learning, the treated monkeys performed significantly better recalling obstacles and navigating mazes that were done more effectively than their untreated peers. In other words, the macaque monkeys who got this all of a sudden doing a lot better than all of the monkeys aside who didn't get it. Now, in terms of inflammation, blood tests revealed a sharp drop in inflammatory markers. Since chronic inflammation, sometimes caused inflammaging, drives many age-related diseases, this find suggests that RSCs could blunt the root of multiple disorders. Organ vitality, post-treatment scans and biopsies showed rejuvenation of brain, bone, and even reproductive organs. The researchers believe this widespread effect was mediated by exosomes. Now, these are tiny vesicles released by the SRCs that carry rejuvenating proteins and genetic material to other cells, essentially acting as messengers of youth. And one of the lead scientists, Dr. C. Wang, said, "We see evidence, hard evidence of rejuvenation." That's a wow.
Yeah.
Most anti-aging strategies tested so far, from rampicin to fasting mimics, have worked primarily in rodents. Translating those gains to primates with their longer lifespan and complex physiology has been elusive. This study is different. Why? It shows functional rejuvenation in macaques. It bridges the gap between mouse biology and human potential. The findings suggest that aging is not simply the result of passive wear and tear, but is, at least partially, programmable and reversible. Now, if similar approaches work in people, SRCs could one day treat not just osteoporosis or memory decline, but the broader syndrome of aging itself. Could change aging forever. Now, there are a lot of enormous questions that remain. When this process is proven safe for humans, how does the criteria get formed for who gets this and who doesn't? This is an ethical, these are ethical responsibilities, and they're not guaranteed yet to translate to humans, but questions do loom. For example, will senescent resistant cells behave predictably, or if they persist too long, increase cancer risk? How long will the benefits last? We don't know. Can such cells be manufactured at scale, and will the body accept them without immune rejection? And how should these therapies be tested in humans? And who should have access if they work? A lot of things have to be asked and I think morally and responsibly answered by the scientific and also the spiritual community as well. I think we as Christians need to have a voice. And, but what it has done is given us a little tiny whisper of what the future could be like, but the implications are huge. If scientists can replenish the body's repair mechanism with cells designed to resist aging, medicine might shift from treating diseases one by one. Well, you got this, you got that, you got the other, and then treating the common root. This vision, once dismissed as science fiction, is now edging closer to scientific fact. Thank you so much for listening.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, some good news there.